serious Redditors who have experienced something supernatural. What is your story? Story 1. When I was 10, my family and I moved into an old Victorian house. It wasn't too weird overall, but the first day I was alone in there, I had quite a memorable experience. My dog and I were left home alone, while my sister went with our parents on an outing somewhere. My dog was a Hald Shepherd half, Goldenly Nose, with a temper problem and what would have been balls of steel if he weren't neutered. He was my best buddy. We were still unpacking, so I went downstairs to the basement to move a few things, and Dog came with me. That didn't strike me as weird. I figured he wanted to explore too, but he stuck right by me the whole time. While we were down there, I heard footsteps and voices from above and thought my family had come back, except the voices weren't theirs, and there was music and laughter, though we hadn't hooked up the entertainment center yet. I thought it might have been neighbors, but Dog was standing at the basement stairs and I knew he'd heard something too. But it stopped. He relaxed, and we went upstairs. On the ground floor, everything was still dark, and my parents were still gone, and there weren't any neighbors around. But I didn't think much of it. I went up to the floor I shared with my sister, which was fairly squared away at this point. The hallway light was on, and so was the lamp in our playroom. I went to the playroom and curled up on my armchair under the lamp, and Dog went with me. He jumped up and sat with me while I read, but at some point randomly growled and jumped off the chair and lay down in front of the doorway, facing the hall. I heard footsteps come up the stairs, quiet but heavy, like faraway boots, and under the light fixture they stopped. Something I couldn't see rested on the one creaky board and rocked it back and forth for a few seconds before turning the hallway light off and on. It wasn't flickers. I could hear the clicks of the switch. Dog sat up, growling slightly. I couldn't see anything in the hallway, but there was suddenly a deep chuckle and the sound of bootsteps hurrying down the hall. Dog flew into a fury, and he raged and snarled and snapped and made noises I'd never heard come from any animal. I was scared and tried to go to him, but he barked at me and turned his attention back to the door. This continued for a little longer and suddenly stopped. Dog dropped back to a guarding pose, and then drooped and came over to my chair. He curled up with me and we stayed there until my family came back. He didn't leave me for the rest of the day. But after that day, he never went back to that floor, and no dog since has ever willing gone into the basement. Story 2. I was watching my girlfriend's house while her and the family went on vacation. I was unemployed and hurting for money. They have 2 dogs, a big German Shepherd and a fat black lab, and her mom paid me to watch them, along with various other gifts and food for the week. I lugged my desktop over there with the intent to game with my friends over the week, stay up for all hours, and general be a giant piece of shoot for the week, and really relax. In the living room, the rest of the house is behind you. Not my favorite thing. After relaxing with video games and a big screen TV for a day, the German Shepherd starts staring at the bathroom. This dog is very protective and loves me. She's sitting at the foot of the bathroom door, staring directly at the window. They built a covered deck to the house. The bathroom window originally looked over the yard but is now just a window to the deck. Kinda creepy in the dark, but I always lowered the blinds. I see her staring at the window, blinds up, and she's whimpering. I walk toward the window to close the blinds. Maybe she saw a squirrel or a bat and went into protect mode. As I get closer to the window, she charges around me and stands between me and the window. I try reach for the drawstring. The dog jumps up and on me to push me back. Even when she's up on me, I try to grab for the drawstring and she uses her snout to try to push my hand away. I finally close the blinds and sit back down. The German Shepherd remains at the foot of the bathroom door, staring, and that's when I hear it. The blinds draw themselves up, very slowly. At this point, the dog is baring its teeth, hair standing on end. I freeze and felt like I couldn't move. From fear, I finally get the nerve to stand up and peek inside the bathroom. The blinds are up. I take one step into the bathroom to go lower them again, and they lower, again, terrifyingly slow. The drawstring going up as the blinds go down, but not swaying or dangling. Taut. I take a step back again. I can't describe what I felt. It was this terror, like I had just seen something I can't rationalize or write off. It's here, in front of my face, happening. I'm staring, just in shock. The dog is losing its mind and starts whimpering, but still won't let me walk forward and stands between me and this darn window. It starts slowly lowering itself, then raising itself. It seemed like forever. Finally, the blinds just dropped, real quick like, and then nothing. I didn't sleep that night and couldn't leave the dogs, so I just shut that door, moved a heavy cabinet in front of it, and turned on some funny movies for the rest of the night to try to wash my brain. I'm sure there's a million explanations for what happened, but that dog doesn't spook for anything, even if German Shepherds are notoriously skittish and paranoid. And in that moment, it was just surreal. Edit. Some grammar. Edit 2. Since people have been asking, yes. I did tell my girlfriend, she said. Nothing like that has ever happened before. Other stuff similar to this has been happening to me my entire life, though it's pretty rare. Answer. I believe you. Surreal is the only word, 'cause there's no vocabulary for whatever the hell does these things. It's a conscientious FU from something invisible. I've seen a dog leash that was resting square on the floor, hanging from a hook, move by its darn self. Something pinched it in the middle and pulled up and made the leash dance. I'll never forget it. Something as mundane as a darn leash is burned in my brain. The physics that belong on Earth were not occurring. 2 sleeping chihuahuas jumped off the back of couch and ran over to it, barking like mad. Had to be a full minute. I got off couch and walked over to it, feeling the weirdest I have ever felt staring at it, wondering how it was moving like that. The leash dropped to the ground and I watched both the dogs' heads look slowly up the wall to the corner and started barking at nothing, staring up like idiots until I made them stop. Those dogs were elderly, lazy, quiet potatoes. I lived in the quiet woods. This messed with me so much that I really about lost my shoot. I had posted it in '06 when it happened on About.com True Tales, but they've rearranged their site, can't find it. They had originally titled it The Haunted Leashes, which I disliked title. Those leashes weren't haunted. Something dropped by to screw with me for life, and it worked. Story 3. I posted this a while ago, but I'll post it again. When I was younger, my mom was dating this guy, who we will call JB, and after a few months, he invited my mom, me, and my brother to go with him and his son, about my age, out to his lake house for the weekend. It was right on Lake Michigan, but up in a more secluded area, which was pretty awesome. Well, we got up there, and for one, I already felt really creeped out. It was a smaller 2, maybe 3 if you count the really big attic, story house that had the living room, dining room, kitchen on the first floor and had 2 bedrooms on the second floor. His grandfather had helped to build the place with the grandfather's dad, and then he lived there for most of his life, working as a tailor in the nearby town. We went up to the attic to get some beach toys because that's where JB kept all of that stuff, so he didn't have to haul it every time he went out there. Well, when we went up to the attic, I noticed in the corner, covered in some dust and cobwebs, about 8 mannequins, some just upper torsos, and some full body. Not to out of the ordinary considering a tailor had lived there. Me and JB's son slept down in the living room on the couch since there were no more beds, and near midnightish I heard on of the stairs squeak a few times. Figuring it was my mom coming to check to make sure we were asleep, I told his son to be quiet and quickly turned the TV off and hid under the covers. After not hearing any noise for a few minutes, I looked out from under the covers and saw 3 of the mannequins moving around in the kitchen. Like their body parts weren't moving, but they were sliding around the kitchen. I swore I was dreaming, but was so terribly frightened I hid back under the covers with a small yelp, and then heard the dragging on the floor coming closer and peeked out, seeing one of them just a few feet from the couch. I hid back under the covers and shut my eyes tight, hoping it would go away. The next morning, I got up and tried not to think about it, really hoping it was just a bad dream. But when we went back up to the attic to put the beach stuff back, the mannequins were in different spots and weren't covered in cobwebs anymore. Don't believe me if you don't want to, but it happened and I've been scared shitless of mannequins ever since. Story 4. Okay, I have something a bit disturbing that I recently found out from my mom. My older sister and I used to share a room when we were younger. I was 10, where she was 16, and we had bunk beds. I would sleep on the top bunk, and we had a long mirror on the wall across, so I was able to see my sister sleeping on the bottom bunk. My sister used to sleepwalk really bad for a period in her life. I would wake up and notice she wasn't in bed, and my mother and I would find her just aimlessly walking down our narrow hallway. One creepy incident was when I noticed she had slept walk again, and instead of grabbing my mom because I felt bad, I decided to get her myself. I searched the whole house and couldn't find her. Eventually, I heard muffles from our closet in the bedroom and opened it to her with her chin low and hair in front of her face, ripping one of my jackets. I put her to sleep, and for some reason at the time it didn't scare me that much. Not sure why, maybe because I was scared I couldn't find my sister, but thinking of it now, it was beyond alarming. Anyway, her sleepwalking got so bad to the point that my mom set up a camera with an alert system in the hallway because she worried she would fall down the stairs at the end of the hallway. I never sleepwalk ever, at least not from what I know. My mom woke up one night to the noise of the alarm going off and went in the hallway to do her usual grab and direct my sister back to sleep routine. However, she said she saw both me and my sister in the hallway with our hands holding each other's and having our backs to her. Figuring I was awake and not worried, she told me to bring my sister back to bed. Only, I wasn't responding, and I was apparently sleepwalking too. She came over to us and we both were staring ahead and biting our lips, apparently. My mom asked again what we are doing and tried her best to direct us back to our bedroom, with no success. She said we were like rock solid. I was a 10-year-old who weighed probably 60 pounds, and my mom said she couldn't move me at all. Eventually, she said we both almost jerked our heads at the same time and looked up to the ceiling above us. We're still holding hands like the creepy girls in The Shining, and apparently said, "We're waiting for her. She wants us to go with her." My mom was beyond freaked and didn't know what to do. My dad had overnights all the time because he was NYPD at the time, so she kind of just forced us awake. I don't remember any of this, and my mom said that was the only time she has ever seen me sleepwalk. I didn't believe much of it, but she's also spiritual. Recently, when she told me this, and I denied it, she brought out the old recordings of the hallway, and I shoot you not, you can see our creepy slow hold handing down the hall and that creepy voice my sister and I said. Just such a creepy, weird incident. Story 5. I've posted this before, so if you've read it before, it was me. Usually when I post this, people tell me it was CO poisoning or that I have undiagnosed schizophrenia, but here it is. I was working overnight at a small 24 PT psych ward in a medium-sized hospital built in the 1950s. Everyone always says the floor was haunted, but I'd been working there for about 10 years and never had a paranormal encounter there myself. Anyway, It's about 1 a.m. and a tech that was stationed outside the door of a sleeping PT's room, doing a direct line of sight observation, comes to the door of the nurses station with another tech in tow. They both say they just saw a shadow person walk out of room 610 down the hall and walk into the assistant director's office. I look at my monitor tech. Her job is to watch the panel of cameras on the unit. She nods. Yeah, I saw it too, on the camera. Now, I'm super jelly. Everyone's always talking about the shoot they see, and I've never seen anything. I decided to walk down there and peek in the window in the door, see what I can see. Well, I immediately regretted it. Let me explain. I've been down that hall 10,000 times, probably more, but something is decidedly off. Yeah, it gets cold. Colder than it has ever been, not even winter, but it is more than that. Each step is harder to take than the last. I can feel something oppressive, something heavy. I'm starting to get tightness in my chest. I feel dislike, the feeling of something hating, pure, undiluted dislike. It wanted me to know that it isn't human. It never has been human, and it dislike all humans. I'm starting to consider turning around. I look back, and the entire crew is standing at the nurses' station, peeking their heads around the door, watching me. Can't chicken out. In front of that many people, I keep walking. I get about 5 feet away from the door, and I have feelings of impending doom. I'm almost sure I'm going to die right then and there. I can't will myself any closer to that door. About that time, the blinds in the window and the door open all by themselves. I see a face, an outline. It's got a cone-shaped head, like someone in a hooded robe maybe, and a mouth frozen in an eternal scream, and giant holes where eyes should have been. I turn around and start running, back towards the nurses' station, back toward other people. I never look back. When I get there, they say I was white as a sheet, shaky, mumbling, and had cold sweat beads. The monitor tech shows me the footage. Some kind of misty black fog chased me about 150 down the hall and dissipated around room 610, and everyone saw it. The administration of the hospital tell me I can't have a copy of the footage, says it can't have the hospital getting a bad reputation, especially the psych ward. Fine, I'll record the footage on my phone next time I work. Nope, they deleted it. But I do have about 7 good witnesses who saw it all. Answer: I have experienced the same entity or something similar. I've felt that inexplicable feeling of hatred, loathing, and evil. It's everything bad, terrible, primal, and savage all at once. And it's the most overwhelming, unforgettable feeling I've ever experienced. I thought I'd die in that moment, and if I didn't, I thought I'd never feel happiness ever again. And I hope to never ever have another encounter with such pure, unadulterated evil. I never saw it, but I felt it, and whatever it was the biggest, heaviest, most despicable being ever. Story 6. When I was in my living room at like 2 a.m. few years ago, I was scrolling about the internet when I decided to get up to get something to drink and put my laptop down. When I got up and turned my head to the entryway, there was a child about a foot smaller than me covered in a black shadow with white eyes. I didn't even have time to scream when he opened his mouth, also white, and disappeared. I cried and called my best friend to comfort me. I haven't seen it since, and I honestly don't want to know what that was. I have more stories, but that's the scariest and most vivid in my head. Story 7. I'm not sure if this is supernatural or a coincidence, but it still freaks me out, in a good weird way. I've been friends with the same group of girls since I was around 5 to 6 years old. When we were 18, one of us was eliminated in a brutal car crash. She hit a tree and snapped her neck. It was devastating. A few months after it happened, I had a dream that I was back in high school and I saw her. I said, I miss you so much. I'm so sorry about what happened." She looked at me and said, "No, I'm not dead. It's all a fraud." Then I woke up and shook it off. The next day I got a call from my friend, another girl in our group, who says, "I had the weirdest dream about last night. We were back at our high school and she told me she wasn't really dead." All the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Story 8. Can't vouch, it's a true story. It's not scary either. I knew this frat kid from Ole Miss that I used to party with. He had a Xanax problem. One night he had too many bars and adult beverage and overdosed. By the time the ambulance came, he had stopped breathing and didn't have a pulse. He was clinically dead for a minute or two before being revived. He claims to have floated above his body looking down on what the medical staff was doing. He said he started going through the roof towards a light. He said it was the most peaceful feeling he has experienced. Almost indescribable, he said. It compares to no substances, and you feel like the weight of the world is suddenly gone. He claimed to see a few family members just as he was pulled back to his body and revived. Is he telling the truth? Who knows? Trustworthy guy, though. It changed him forever. Answer. I've had near-passing experiences where I black out and have really minor amnesia, and it seems like my mind fills in the blanks of my memories afterwards. Similar to this, it's always almost felt like a dream that I didn't have until after I'd regained consciousness. And it feels like the dream is my brain's botched attempt to explain what happened during the time that I went out cold. Not that this isn't true, but man, those episodes when you're about to die can be crazy. Story 9. I'm sure this will get buried, but my little dog Benji, who died a little over 3 years ago, still visits me. Ever since he passed, a few times a month I'll feel something jump into my bed, just like he used to. But when I look, I can't see anything. I'm absolutely sure it's him coming back to visit and cuddle. It doesn't happen as often now as when he first died, though. Story 10. This one I can't explain, but here goes. I was 6-7 years old Saturday morning. I wanted to eat cereal, but there was no milk, so I decided to go to a small store that is on the same block as my house. So I walk to it, 50 or so meters away from my house, and I see the owner outside looking at his store, which is closed. I say hi to him. He says, "Hello." I ask if they are not opening today, and he says, "Not today, I don't think anything of it," and said, "Okay, thank you." He asks me to say hi to my parents. They have been neighbors and friends for more than 30 years at that moment. I go home, make some toast, and I see that my parents are dressing up. I ask them, where are they going? And my mom says they are going to Mr. Ricardo's funeral, whom died last night. Mr. Ricardo was the owner of the store I went, the one I saw and talked to 30 minutes before. Answer. My mom has a friend with a very similar story, so here it goes. This lady was about 16 and going to high school in Colorado. She had a boyfriend. One night, really late, at like 3 a.m., she heard knocks on her window door. Don't remember which. Doesn't matter. They wake her up, so she goes to the door and her boyfriend is there. She's 16, so she freaks out. Tells him how he has to go home now, 'cause he's gonna get her in trouble. But he just stood there looking at her, didn't say a word. She get angry, tells him to leave, and eventually shut the door behind her. Then she goes back to bed. Maybe 30 minutes later, she gets a phone call. It's her boyfriend's parents. He had died the night before in a terrible motorcycle accident, and they just found his completely destroyed body. He had died the evening before, way before he had shown up at her house. She is terrified about it to this day and disliked telling this story. Story 11. When I was a kid, probably between 2nd and 5th grade, I may have had a poltergeist. I consider myself a bit of a skeptic, so I'm not sure, but sometimes I experience things. I'm sure many of you won't believe this story, but I promise it is 100 true. I was raised by my grandmother, and she would always buy me these porcelain dolls in which to decorate my room. I liked them, but I wasn't allowed to play with them. I was only allowed to look at them. Also, it should be noted that now that I am an adult, I consider myself a problem child at that time, as I had such a sassy attitude and some anger. Issues. Well, I was upset about something dumb and I had an attitude, so I stomped off to my bedroom. I had a couple of these dolls displayed on high shelves that I could not reach without help, and one in particular was a beautiful doll dressed in a wedding gown. As soon as I walked into the room, it flew from the top shelf across the room and landed right on my bed. There is no way it could have simply fallen onto my bed, as